Hello, I'm joined today by my guest Paul Saunders. He's the Managing Director of Legal Eye. Paul, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. Nice to meet you, David, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Absolutely, no, anytime. We're talking today about a subject which has um, recently attracted quite a bit of press headlines, particularly in our industry press, because there is a sense out there that when it comes to sort of general compliance, and particularly in the area of anti-money laundering, or AML as we've come to refer to it, that we are now sort of being scrutinized more as estate agents than ever before. And we normally ask you to provide some sort of statistics to help us with the marketing of some of these webinars, and you have done, and to me it's mind blowing because we've never really sort of I've never really seen these figures before, but 68 estate agents been fined a total of 645 thousand pounds there for AML breaches since 2017. It's a lot of money. It's £500,000 there, but it shows you that that they're taking it seriously. But there is also some sense out there that HMRC particularly are now beefing up on their on making sure and policing that it's all been done correctly. And frankly, we're really great at selling houses. We're not so great sometimes at managing our own compliance. But I guess that's where you guys come in.
Yeah, well, we would like to think so. Absolutely. I think I hate statistics. I have to say that right out there, because to me they come across as scare tactics, and they come across as fear factors. And I don't think any of this is about fear or concern. This is about running your businesses better. It's about running businesses properly. And I think our background coming from it, from law firms and the property industry, I think it doesn't matter what sector of this industry you're in, whether it's the lending, whether it's the agents, lawyers, brokers, we all have a level of regulation. And actually all that is basically a set of rules upon which we play the game.
And for us as agents, and I dare say in the legal profession, it's the same. I'm sure it is for accountants as well. But that game effectively starts from the minute you meet a client and you begin that sort of onboarding process. So explain to us a little bit about your background and how your product helps with that.
Yeah, of course. That game actually starts the minute you set up your business, and I think that's very much where we come at it from. We're all good at aspects of what we do, and as you just highlighted quite rightly, you're brilliant at selling houses in the industry. That's great. Lawyers are very good at doing legal work, quickly or slowly. That's a matter for conjecture. But they are really good, and I'm a solicitor, and that's my background. But I think what's really important is that we have a rounded end-to-end business, and that we use those opportunities and experts that are out there in order to make sure that our business is the best that it can be. That's very much what we are about. So Legal Eye is part of Smooth PLC, which is a group that provides a platform for estate agents to do their onboarding. It provides a referral base for brokers to pass instructions through to solicitors on an effectively a price comparison basis or quality comparison basis. And we have a law firm as well, which enables us hopefully to process some of those transactions efficiently, and that tries to use some new ideas of self-employed lawyers and different aspects. Legal Eye sits central within that organizational group. It has historically provided for the last 18 years risk and compliance support to law firms end to end, whether that's AML or whether that's broadly across their regulatory spectrum. More recently, we have become perhaps better known for our AML supervisory support work and branched that out into the estate agents as a consequence of us running onboarding for estate agents through the Smooth group, through Smooth Start.
So an agent looking to sort of get on top of their compliance, would you say that there's a perfect sort of client avatar out there for your services? Is it a one size fits all solution? Is this for bigger agents, smaller agents, or who do you see this appealing to?
I think the AML regulations that HMRC, they've been around a long time, and they apply probably to 90% of the estate agent's environment in the same way that they apply to law firms, to brokers, to other people within the industry. So whilst I'm not going to suggest it is a one size fits all, because all businesses are different, I think what we have is we have a group of experts who understand how the implementation of this needs to look within a business, and they work on a very personal basis with that business to make sure that it fits the requirements that they have. I think anything to do with regulation, anything to do with AML or ID or anything we talk about is actually very much based on an outcomes focused result, not this is the way you do it, there are no other choices. Yeah. This is about what works for you as an organization. What are you capable of? Resources vary hugely, and it is just not practical necessarily to have some amazing system that solves. It is very often necessary to have very personal individuals doing these things, whether it's still photocopying passports or whether it's looking at utility bills or whether it's using an electronic system that the customer goes onto a portal and inputs that information. So long answer to a short question, no one size fits all, but hopefully an expertise that makes people run their businesses better and hopefully more profitably.
And I suppose, I mean, you mentioned you were part of a wider PLC with a huge amount of sort of legal background as well and expertise, but I suppose your corporate structure then allows you to cater for businesses of all different sizes because you've got substantial resources and experience to fall back on.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And that, that means we work with sole practitioners right the way up in the conveyancing side to some of the largest conveyancers in the country. But I would have said 60 to 70% of our business is working around smaller personal relationships, whether that's with brokers, agents, or lawyers.
Fantastic. So I think you touched on it earlier, but Smooth Start as a product for agents. Explain that if we were interested in sort of taking that further, how would we start to sort of integrate that into our workflow? And what stage do we come to? Hopefully at the beginning, yes. But a lot of us are coming to you halfway through where we've got some sort of procedures in place, and we, it's interesting. I use the phrase "one size fits all." I've heard of cases where agents are getting penalized for having just the same process for every single customer, and whether that is a belt and braces approach or not, they're getting penalized for not being able to adapt and to adequately risk assess everybody and have different structures. So it's interesting. So just explain to us how your process works, how you get to know an agent and what they would need to do next.
Yeah, you pick up on a really good point, because on the one hand, we're told we've got to have onboarding processes in place. And then on the other hand, we're criticised because we have onboarding processes in place and we take a standard approach to audit. Now, I think there is a bit of a happy medium in amongst all of that. And I think you need a core set of rules in which to play that game, whether that's policies, processes, training. But actually, you can't lose the personal in amongst it. We deal with people, and people are not only are they our lifeblood, but they're also our downfall, because there are some incredibly plausible people out there who actually are setting out to defraud us or to have money laundering offences committed. So as a consequence, we are almost damned if we do and damned if we don't. So I think the position that we have is that we always start with Legal Eye doing some kind of audit or gap analysis to see where a business is up to. So you cannot just roll into a business and say, "Yay, we've got the perfect solution for you." You've got to get to the bottom of it. You've got to have a look at the policies and processes that are in place, assess whether those sit comfortably with the HMRC regs, or whether actually maybe those perhaps need a bit of a relook at. And particularly, that lots of places have the policies, but sometimes fall down around the training and the implementation. So it happens in all of the sector. People will say to us, "Yeah, we've got all those, absolutely fine, they're all there." And then when we go in and do an audit, yeah, we tick that box to say you've got everything. But then when we interview people in business and the policy says you use an electronic database in order to get the ID, and then we talk to the person face to face and they turn around and say, "Yeah, well, I just collect the passport and a utility bill." Well, you've immediately got a breach as far as HMRC are concerned, because actually nobody's doing what your policies say they should do. So I think that's the place to start, is get that gap analysis, understand what's wrong or right with your business, and then Smooth Start can be of benefit. That then takes you to a portal environment where things like TA6, things like the upfront information, the collection of data can be done and placed by the customer, and hopefully then utilized further down the chain. Our objective is to try and only collect information once. Now we still have challenges around ID and can that be used further down in the transaction, and we hope digi-identity trials will give us a result to that, and hopefully that will enable us to pass that right the way through to the lawyers, potentially the brokers, the lender.
So just to put that context for people who don't know what we're referring to, but that's the process of basically having your identity verified, passing those AML checks, if you like, by one party, but then that being able to be used by the solicitors in the transaction, and anybody else that needs to prove ID for the same customer. And hitherto that's been difficult to do because we've all been checking our own backs for compliance. So I think law firms have always taken the view that, "Oh, I'm sorry, but we need to do our own process," and agents have done the same thing. And for the customer, there is this sort of sense that they have a 2-week period where all they're doing is getting out that passport and utility bill, and it's tiresome. And I think we could probably, what we're saying is, in the fullness of time, take the heavy lifting out of that and maybe only have them do it once.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you're absolutely right. It is completely alien to us now in a digital environment when we're buying things on Amazon and getting them delivered the same day, that we should have everybody in our industry redoing the same step, let alone collecting additional information. So, there is a lot of work being done by government and as I say, around the digital identity frameworks, where we will be able to utilize that. I'm confident that will happen. And that's then where the portals and the environments help hugely. Pardon me, because that's where the customer then can start inputting the information on day one with the agent. The agent then can collect that information. They can go through their requirements for AML, and if in the future they become more strictly regulated, actually they won't need to worry too much, because all of that data and information will be already being processed and collected, passed through, whether that's then potentially for brokers, whether it's then into the portal for the lawyers. Everybody's journey is going to feel a little bit more comfortable.
That makes a lot of sense if we can get it to that stage, because at the moment I think sometimes when we're processing AML for clients, they sometimes don't know why it is that we need the things that we need, and it feels like everybody's running separate processes. I know for people putting in offers with estate agents, they then very often have to go through that AML process as well. So you can, if you've got a big chain, you can end up doing this several times with several people. So it would be lovely to get to a standardized structure, but it feels like as an industry we're also getting more on top of it. There are great suppliers with solutions such as yourselves out there, whereas if we were to sort of go back 5 years ago, we didn't have an abundance of this help or awareness or assistance there. We knew it was coming. We all knew it was coming, and we all knew that we'd have to deal with it. And I think most of us just hoped, we could put it in a drawer and forget about it. But that's clearly not the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been saying it for 20 years, haven't we? that things will change. Things will change. I think there are some indicators now that actually technology companies like ours and compliance companies recognize that the one size doesn't fit all, and actually there are some pretty good solutions out there from numerous businesses, and this is about pulling the right bits together, because at the end of the day, none of us in the transaction get paid until such time as we move those lovely customers from one house to another, who by the point that that actually happens are so incredibly frustrated and so stressed by the whole thing that actually the chance of us getting 5-star reviews becomes less and less, not because we're not great.
So true. It's because of the friction in the processes. Yeah, I was having exactly that conversation with an agent about an hour ago, that there used to be a time where we were quite happy to sort of almost see everybody as a means to an end, and we knew that the shiny, lovely story we told people in the comfort of their living rooms when we first went to see them, we'd end up leaving the transaction not entirely happy, because by that point you've been through the mill of conveyancing and surveyors and solicitors and mortgage brokers and chains and all sorts of stuff, and when you hand over the keys to both buyer and you take them from seller, as an agent there was a sense that it wasn't the happy ending that it was meant to be. And I think that we as an industry and as a whole, we all seem to realize that that's the case, and that we should be keeping happy clients for longer. Even if we've completed that transaction, they should feel like they can come back to us in the future. And I suppose making our onboarding and things like AML compliance smoother, that is going to help us have a better relationship with those clients pretty much from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also gives us confidence, doesn't it? Because at the moment, I don't think any of us have confidence that necessarily what we're doing is right, and as a consequence what we're passing down the chain is completely accurate, and we certainly don't necessarily understand what is going to happen next. So there is a whole training piece. A lot of our time is spent in trying to train people's level of understanding of the reason why things are being done, and what it is that takes the pain away from these processes.
And so, Paul, for anybody that's watching this and they want to sort of take that first step, is the first step some sort of a discovery call with you guys in terms of just learning a bit more about the business? And how long does that take normally?
So yes, in answer to the question, a discovery call is good. I think always the point, as I said earlier on, that we would start is to say, don't spend your money on anything or any systems until such time as you understand and know what your business is actually doing, as opposed to what you think it might be doing. So to me, that gap analysis, that understanding of where you're at is absolutely key. And then once you've got that ammunition, you may well have the perfect business, which is fantastic. We did an AML audit on an estate agent that I won't name here recently, and actually we came away and said, wow, they are incredible. They have got this really set up well, and actually they were really well placed to move to another level of communication and another level of service, which is where they're going. And that is fabulous to see. We're not all in that boat, but a lot of us have got a large portion of it already, because we've been told we've got to have a policy, or we're told we've got to do CDD and due diligence on our customers right at the outset. But actually, has anybody really guided us as to what that could or should look like, and how quick can it be? And that's, I think, where you have to reflect reasonably honestly on your business and say, let's get those right before we start moving forward.
Yeah.
And actually, once you've got that, not only are you protecting yourself from those horrible scaremongery figures of fines, which, as you highlighted at the start, are happening, and they do seem to be happening more regularly. So let's tick those boxes and remove that fear, and know that if somebody comes and knocks on the door, we're fine. And then let's start to think about how can we move this business forward and actually make it feel better.
And the one thing that's come across from everything that you've said is that there seems to be an absolute willingness on your side that education is part of that process, that we should understand what it is that we're dealing with. There is that sense that as agents, we're really good sometimes at just box ticking, and we will do that blindly if we're told that won't be enough to comply. But actually understanding why we have to do something can actually help us a lot more in shaping that service as well for the customer. So I wanted to thank you very much for your time, Paul. All of Legalized details are on kerfuffle.com. You can find them there. But thank you very much for talking to us today.
Thank you for your time, David. Appreciate it.